Hey YouTube, welcome back to a brand new Animal Crossing New Horizons video. Today we are taking a look at all the critters you need to catch before the end of May in New Horizons. So without further ado, let's get straight into today's video. So we're a couple of months into New Horizons right now, and we're probably all pretty used to hunting down and catching different kinds of critters by now. However, as with each month that passes by, we're going to see a shift in the kind of bugs and fish around our island in about a week's time. We covered April's critters last month and they seem to help a lot of you out, so we're back to run down all of the critters you need to keep your eyes out for over the next few days so you don't miss them. There's definitely a lot of fish and bugs moving away for the summer in the Northern Hemisphere, and even more leaving for the winter in the Southern Hemisphere. All these critters are leaving for a minimum of 3 months, and some even longer, but we'll go over them all. So starting with the fish in the Northern Hemisphere, we have a total of 3 fish leaving, including the golden trout, the loach and the oarfish. The golden trout and the oarfish are fairly rare, but will return in September and December respectively. The loach is pretty common, and I imagine everyone's caught one by now, but if not, make sure you catch one as they don't return until March next year. So fairly straightforward and a pretty easy list to follow. Before we get into the bugs leaving us in the Northern Hemisphere, let's go over the fish leaving in the Southern Hemisphere. Unfortunately, the folks in the Southern Hemisphere have your work cut out for you, as there's a total of 10 fish leaving the New Horizons island for the winter. The river fish leaving include the char, the cherry salmon, the golden trout, the guppy, the neon tetra and the mitten crab. All these fish are fairly rare, just remember that the cherry salmon and the char are most commonly found on cliff tops near waterfalls. Most of these fish will return to the Southern Hemisphere in September-October time, with the exception of the mitten crab that won't return until March next year, so definitely keep your eyes open for one of those. There are no pond fish leaving, but the sea fish include the barred knifejaw, the seahorse, the zebra turkeyfish and finally the ray. The barred knifejaw and the ray are the rarest, but I don't think you'll have any trouble finding them if you haven't already. Again, most of these return in September or October after the winter, with the exception of the ray that doesn't return until February next year. So that's pretty much it for the fish side of things. Although some of the fish can be slightly difficult to find, they're certainly not the rarest, so I'm sure you'll find them no problem. Next we have the bugs that are leaving us at the end of May. The Northern Hemisphere has it pretty easy, as we've only got one bug leaving for the summer months, and that is the mole cricket. The mole cricket can be found all day pretty much, although it is slightly rare. For those of you who have furniture paths or patterns everywhere, the mole cricket might be a little harder to find because you have to dig them up from underground when you hear them to find them. This critter doesn't return until November, so definitely try to find one if you can. If you're really struggling, I recommend heading to a Mystery Island tour, as they're a bit more common on the Bug Islands. Moving on, the Southern Hemisphere have it rough once again, as there's a total of 10 bugs leaving for the winter months, which is to be expected because you don't really tend to see many bugs out during the winter season. These bugs include the mantis, the orchid mantis, the flea, the long locust, the violin beetle, the monarch butterfly, the walking stick, the migratory locust, the rice grasshopper and finally the cricket. Most of these are fairly common, although it's worth pointing out that the violin beetle can only be found on tree stumps. So if you haven't caught one of these critters yet, definitely cut down a few trees and leave a few stumps around until you can net one. The first half of these bugs will return between September and December, whilst the last few mentioned won't be returning until between January and February next year. So yeah, that's pretty much all the fish and bugs leaving us by next weekend, at which point a bunch of new critters will start spawning in at the start of June. Of course, there's no real panic, as these will return eventually, mostly after a few months, but it's always nice to make sure we're up to date and of course catching at least one of each to donate to Blathers in the museum. Should you miss any, there's always the chance they're currently residing in the opposite hemisphere too anyway, if you really need them. But for now, that pretty much wraps up this video. If you're an Animal Crossing fan, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on any New Horizons news. Until then, I'd like to give a special thank you to this channel's Patreon supporters, as well as some new channel members. You guys absolutely rock. Don't forget to head over to our Discord server too, and of course, if you got this far in the video, please comment critters, just to let me know you did. That would be super awesome. And please be sure to include which of these critters you still need to catch, if any. I'd love to know. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video and found it entertaining. Please be sure to leave a like if you did. Thanks for watching, I hope you have an amazing day, stay safe, and I'll see you in my next video. Peace.